On the 7th of December 2001, Janine Vaughan, a 31-year-old woman, went missing after leaving a popular nightclub with friends. Surveillance footage captured her getting into a red car driven by an unknown person, and concerns about a local policeman stalking her were documented in a mysteriously missing diary. However, despite extensive investigation, the driver's identity and the truth behind Janine's disappearance remain elusive, leaving the reeling community now questioning each other's involvement. Before we delve into the case, we would like to thank our sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Whether I like it or not, screens have become a major gateway to my happiness. But paying for 10 different TV platforms does not spark joy. So when I hear my favorite TV shows or movies are available on, say, the British Netflix, but not on the US platform, I feel robbed of my American dream and my pursuit of happiness. But now I circumvent pesky geographical streaming limitations by using Surfshark VPN to establish a protected and private connection. For example, if I need my office fix but don't feel like paying yet another network for their app, I just use Surfshark's VPN on my phone or computer to connect to a UK server, and bam, a whole new catalog of shows and movies are at my fingertips. Additionally, Surfshark VPN proves to be incredibly useful in our research, especially when we encounter region-locked articles. It allows us to bypass geographical restrictions effortlessly, providing access to valuable information for our research. Not only does it block my true location, Surfshark's Clean Web feature blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, allowing me to surf the web with confidence. As an added benefit, their antivirus service comes free. Discover effortless online privacy with Surfshark VPN. Get an exclusive Surfshark deal. Enter promo code MYSTERY for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/mystery. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's absolutely no risk to try it out. Just click on the link in the description below or enter promo code MYSTERY at checkout. Thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring our video. Janine Vaughan was born on the 7th of January in 1970 in Muswellbrook, New South Wales, Australia. When Janine's mother was 5 months pregnant, her parents separated, and her father, Ian Vaughan, joined the Royal Australian Navy. While he had initially heard that a baby was on the way, he later became under the impression that she had miscarried. After Janine was born, her mother deserted her and put her up for adoption. When the truth was found out, Janine was adopted by her paternal grandparents, Ethel and Nancy Vaughan, as her father Ian could not care for her due to his commitment to the Navy. In the mid-1970s, Ian Vaughan met Jennifer, also known as Jenny, Lorraine Rowe, and in 1972 they married and set up their home in Tambar Springs. While her grandmother, Nancy Vaughan, maintained responsibility for Janine's upbringing, on occasion, Janine would visit Ian and Jenny. Janine and Jenny developed a close relationship over the ensuing years, and in 1980, Ian and Janine moved in with Ian's parents and took care of Janine along with their other children. Janine was described as having a wonderful sense of humor and possessing an impressive amount of energy. Involved in and passionate about a variety of sports throughout her life, she was known for her prowess, but also her sense of fairness. But for all her outward social skills, she was also deeply sensitive and empathetic, with an impressive artistic ability, especially in the area of abstract art. Described as friendly and down-to-earth by all who met her, she was remembered for smiling often and being full of joy. As a young adult, Janine expressed her intense desire to settle down and form a family of her own, very much wanting to separate herself from the isolating experience she was forced to endure at the hands of her absent biological mother. In the late 1990s, Janine began dating a 23-year-old named Phil Evans. Their bond grew, leading them to make the joint decision to relocate to Bathurst, a countryside town in New South Wales, where they could embark on a fresh and joyful journey together. Phil worked as an electrician, while Janine worked at a sandwich shop that was owned by Phil's sister. In the year 2000, Janine's romantic life and plans for the future experienced upheaval when she broke up with her boyfriend. Seeking solace, she immersed herself in the social scene of Bathurst and was successful at making many friends. She was eventually hired as a store manager at Ed Harry Menswear. After a long day at work, on Thursday, December 6, 2001, Janine met up with friends at a local pub. Later that evening, in what may have already been considered the 7th of December due to the late hour, Janine, accompanied by her friend Jordan Morris and Juanita Murphy, took a cab to the Metro Tavern, a local nightclub in Bathurst. Notorious for its unfavorable reputation, the pub was referred to as the Dirty Tav by locals. In the early 2000s, Bathurst had a relatively small population of just over 26,000 people. Despite Bathurst being recognized as a university town and hosting the annual Bathurst 1000 touring car race on the Mount Panorama circuit, the 1990s and 2000s unveiled a dark underbelly characterized by violence, drug-related incidents, and a reputation for nighttime assaults on women. Janine and her friends were captured on the bar's CCTV entering around 2:30 a.m. They spent approximately 1 hour and 10 minutes inside. According to the patrons at the bar, Janine seemed to be in good spirits, although they noted she was not overly inebriated, nor was she slurring her words or stumbling. Around 3:47 a.m., the group decided to leave the Metro Tavern. Janine emerged from the pub accompanied by a man, whom police have yet to identify, while her friend Jordan exited and stood beside her. Following a brief exchange of kisses between the man and Janine, the man departed, leaving Janine behind as she waited for her friends. Investigators examining the footage later said, quote, "We don't know what was said beforehand, but he says, 'Promise?' So the assumption is, promise you're coming back." The CCTV footage revealed a lover's quarrel between Janine's friends, Jordan and Juanita, with Janine visibly expressing distress due to their constant fighting. Janine was already stressed out about the night's events, as at some point during their evening of revelry, Janine misplaced her purse, which left her with no money, no house keys, no ID, and no cell phone. Her purse was later found inside the bar, located by a cleaner who found it jammed into the corner of the bathroom the next day. The cleaner told police and the media that he remembered the bag because, quote, "It looked like someone had deliberately hidden it. Someone had put packets of chips in front of it. The bag had also been jammed behind a pole. This was unusual as bags were not often left in that area, usually stored behind a board which blocked off the tavern's staircase." Police declined to comment on the presence of her purse, and it remains unclear whether Janine had concealed the bag there herself, only to have forgotten its location as the result of alcohol or general chaos, or if the purse had been intentionally concealed, possibly as a precursor to having control over the purse's unwitting and most likely intoxicated owner, who would be left relatively helpless without their personal items. Frustrated by the situation, Janine expressed her desire to go to the nearby Oxford Hotel, commonly known as the Ox, for more drinks. The Ox was a mere 5-minute walk from the Metro Tavern. In the surveillance footage, Janine is seen walking approximately 40 meters ahead of Jordan and Juanita, ambling onto Keppel Street just as a light drizzle transformed into a heavy downpour. It was then that a car approached, executing a U-turn before pulling up beside Janine. Grainy footage from the CCTV indicated that the car stopped for approximately 27 seconds, during which Janine entered the vehicle. Tragically, this would mark the last sighting of Janine. Upon police interviews, her friends expressed regret at being unable to ascertain the identity of the driver nor the destination to which Janine was headed. Her friends and some witnesses described the car as being a bright red, medium-sized sedan, resembling a Mitsubishi Magna or possibly a Toyota Camry. Identifying the car would become the utmost priority in the subsequent investigation. Janine's family maintains that she was cautious about her personal security and would not have entered the vehicle unless she was familiar with the driver. Janine had a wide network of friends, be it through her job or through mutual connections. The following day, Janine was scheduled to open the menswear store she managed. However, when a customer called the store and discovered its closure, they promptly notified the manager of the Lithgow store, Serena D'Souza. This unusual occurrence prompted Serena to make multiple attempts to contact Janine. Such a lack of communication was uncharacteristic of the normally prompt and professional shopkeep. With no response from Janine, the manager proceeded to report her as missing to the police. Investigation into her disappearance was launched immediately. Locals were warned her disappearance could be at the hands of a serial attacker, given the pattern of disturbing incidents which had occurred in the area. A task force, codenamed Strike Force Toko, was created to catch the attacker, and the 8-person police team swiftly descended upon the town to do what locals hoped was a thorough and professional investigation. At the start of the investigation, a woman named Lynette Borland came forward with startling information. Lynette informed authorities of a chilling occurrence which happened on December 7th at approximately 3:30 a.m. This was 20 minutes before Janine would go missing. Lynette said that while walking home near the vicinity of the Metro Tavern, she encountered a man in a red car who attempted to coax her into his vehicle. Frightened by the encounter, she swiftly sought refuge at a nearby service station and waited for the car to pass. Despite being unable to provide precise information regarding the car model, Lynette provided a detailed description of the man involved. According to her observations, the man appeared to be quite tall, estimating that he was around 6 feet in height. With dark hair and fair skin, Lynette remembers he had a notably square jaw. Additionally, she noticed the man had hairy arms and the marked presence of acne blemishes on his nose. This incident occurred only about 750 meters from where Janine was last seen on CCTV footage. Police suspected a connection between the two incidents, but remained uncertain about the identity of the man involved. During the inquest, testimony was provided by Janine's friends and family. Her former partner, Philip Evans, who was not considered a suspect and was cleared by police, mentioned that she had been stalked by an unknown individual. He was unaware of the identity of the stalker, but noted incidents such as flowers, notes, and even lingerie being left on her car while she was at work. At the outset, the police conducted interviews with 2 individuals who were identified as persons of interest. The first man was Dennis Briggs. He had access to a small red car. Information was brought to the attention of police suggesting that Dennis had made a confession regarding the rape and murder of Janine. However, when questioned, Dennis adamantly denied any involvement and asserted that he had no connection to Janine's disappearance. Concerning the purported confession he made, Dennis later told police that he had concocted the confession, which was intended solely as a sick joke. His former partner, Julie Creve, mentioned that Dennis had been inconsistent in taking his medication for bipolar disorder. Mental health professionals say that such illogical actions could be understood, though not excused, through such a lens. Separate from Dennis's erroneous admission, another man was called in for questioning, a local pharmacist named Andrew Jones. In 2008, the police acquired a red Renault 19, believed to have been owned by Andrew Jones at the time of Janine's disappearance. When questioned about the vehicle, the pharmacist informed the media that although he had previously owned a Renault 19, he was uncertain about its current whereabouts, as he had sold it years prior. It is believed that he actually sold the car in 2002, shortly after Janine went missing. However, it was not seized by the police until several years later. The car drew the attention of investigators due to its resemblance to the descriptions provided at the time of Janine's disappearance and its alignment with available forensic evidence, which was able to estimate the wheel size based on CCTV footage. The pharmacist had informed police in 2009 that he was actually acquainted with the victim, Janine, but he stressed that they were not particularly close. Andrew was a pharmacist in the same shopping center as the menswear store where Janine worked. Financial records indicate that he made purchases at the store where Janine was employed multiple times. 3 transactions occurred within a few months of each other, although it cannot be confirmed that Janine was working during all 3 instances when Andrew made purchases. One of Janine's co-workers suggested that it was likely she was present. In a 2002 interview with police, Andrew mentioned buying a shirt from Janine while she was working at Ed Harry Menswear. Some say Andrew Jones does bear a resemblance to the individual described as being inside the car when Janine entered it in the early hours of December 7, 2001. He claims his alibi is that he was home by 9:30 p.m. on December 6th and that he did not go out again that night. Initially, Andrew cooperated fully with the police, providing answers to their questions and assisting in the investigation. He vehemently denied any involvement in the case. However, after being questioned on 3 separate occasions, he made the decision to refrain from further cooperation without the presence of a legal representative. No hard evidence was found linking either Dennis nor Andrew to Janine's disappearance. As the weeks turned into months, local doubts regarding the integrity of the investigation grew as disturbing details were unveiled. Accusations surfaced regarding potential police misconduct and the mishandling of evidence, such as when 2 knives, one with obvious hair and blood on the blade, were misplaced and untested. Police were unable to determine if either of the knives were connected artifacts due to what the police commission later said was a negligent lack of cataloging and testing. One knife was located just 5 days after the disappearance of Janine, and it was placed in a forensic exhibit bag. The second knife was said to be connected to what the police commission later reported was, quote, a person of interest, but no further details were released, and neither knife was examined before they were destroyed. A forensics officer working for the Bathurst police did a visual inspection of the knife and had recommended that it be examined by the Division of Analytical Laboratories. These examinations never occurred. The knife was never again inspected, and it has been confirmed by media that it was destroyed in February of 2002, less than 3 months after the 31-year-old's dramatic disappearance. Such an act of destruction of precious evidence was something the police were unable to explain, except to say it was a failure of communication and teamwork. Such an act became even more insidious when it was brought to light that the lead investigator in Janine's case was the same man Janine had earlier complained to friends was harassing her. The man Janine had complained of was Officer Brad Hoseman, a detective for the town of Bathurst and the former deputy mayor of Bathurst. On October 21, 2001, just 7 weeks prior to Janine's disappearance, the badge-carrying police officer Brad Hoseman, along with friend Stephen Wolfe, was witnessed by a male bartender harassing a younger woman at a bar within the Bathurst Golf Club. Reports say the officer was visibly drunk at the club's seafood night and was acting belligerent. Witnesses say that Officer Hoseman allegedly grabbed the chest of a 24-year-old female bartender and later obscenely exposed himself to her. The officer was himself arrested and charged with a number of criminal offenses, including willful and obscene exposure, as well as the even more severe charge of aggravated indecent assault. Brad firmly denied the accusations, and all the charges were eventually dismissed in the local Bathurst court. The alleged victim was employed by the prominent country club, and some locals wonder if the young woman was pressured or paid to drop the charges. Such brutishness towards young women, a source commented, sets a behavioral precedent for future acts by the officer. Police reports detail that Officer Hoseman had been on leave the day of Janine's disappearance, December 7th, and had returned to work on the 10th of December. Upon his return, he was initially in charge of the investigation, until it was later taken over by homicide detectives from Sydney. Hoseman remained part of the investigation team until April of 2002, and continued to have some involvement in the investigation until October of 2002. As inquiries arose regarding the extent of Brad's familiarity with Janine, public concerns about the officer extended far beyond his pending charges. In 2002, Hoseman became an official person of interest to the investigation. In 2003, Officer Hoseman was officially dismissed from the New South Wales Police Force. In June of 2005, the Commissioner of Police received an anonymous letter alleging Brad Hoseman's involvement with Janine's possible abduction. The letter read, quote, "Why haven't any actions been taken against the individual known as Hoseman in Bathurst, especially regarding his involvement with the missing woman who he allegedly attempted to assault? It is widely known that he pursued her, even on the night she disappeared. The knowledge of his actions is not limited to the public, as you are also aware. Yet no measures have been taken to address this issue. It is imperative that this individual is placed behind bars where he rightfully belongs. Some nurses at Bathurst Hospital possess knowledge of his guilt, but are too afraid to come forward due to his history of intimidating others." A formal investigation into police integrity was officially called for in September of 2005, named Operation Rainy. This investigative endeavor, led by the Police Integrity Commission, aimed to scrutinize the New South Wales Police Force's actions, with a particular emphasis on Officer Hoseman's involvement in the initial inquiry of Janine's disappearance, and the subsequent handling of any information regarding the potential connection between them. In the course of the investigation, it was discovered that several individuals who knew Janine had previously informed the police about her interactions with Brad. The Commission's investigation uncovered additional details that had not been previously documented nor included in the police files. The results of the police integrity investigation were finally published in December of 2007, and with it, shocking new evidence was brought to light. It was found that the Litco manager of Ed Harry's Menswear, Serena D'Souza, the same person who had called police to report Janine missing, had previously given evidence to the police concerning conversations she'd had with Janine some 4 to 6 weeks prior to her disappearance. Serena recalls how Janine had said she had met a, quote, ex-copper who was also on the local council, and that she was intending on going out with him. A couple of weeks later, Serena had another conversation with Janine, in which she remembers the 31-year-old had said, quote, "The guy's not for me, he's harassing me." Janine's manager, Serena, also remembers that she had told her the same officer had bought her flowers, made repeated phone calls to her, and kept walking past the store. Serena told police that she told Janine to record this in the store's work diary, and Janine had told her that she would do so. Each retail location had a journal in which anything of significance that happened during the day was to be recorded. Serena could not recall Janine mentioning the name of the person concerned, although the 2007 report by the Police Commission states that their official view on the matter is that the person being referred to was most certainly Officer Brad Hoseman. The 2001 diary for the Bathurst Ed Harry's store has never been located. While all of the information provided by the manager would have been considered valuable in finding leads, there's no mention in the investigation's official reports of any conversations between Serena and Janine whatsoever, much less any mention of Officer Brad Hoseman. Such information was not revealed until the Commission's inquiry more than 5 years after Janine's probable abduction. Multiple witnesses also saw Officer Hoseman walking past the menswear store and observing Janine. Some friends claim that she'd informed them about Brad calling her at night and asking her out, and they recalled that although she declined, she felt unsure about how to handle the situation due to his position as a local detective. An old friend of Janine said in the months prior to her disappearance that she had spoken to her about a person who was a policeman in Bathurst who had been asking people about her and who she had said had been walking past the shop trying to, quote, make eye contact. The police commission also identified others who had recalled knowing of the casual relationship budding between the victim and the officer. In 2001, Rachel Green managed Fashion Fair, a retail clothing store situated close to the Ed Harry menswear store where Janine worked. She had told police that she had met Janine prior to her commencing her work at the Ed Harry menswear store, but came to know her better once they became work neighbors. She recalled that Officer Brad Hoseman would occasionally come into her store and have conversations with her, inquiring about Janine and expressing interest in her. Rachel said of Janine, quote, "While she seemed concerned about her next steps, she didn't appear to be scared." The commission also cited the obvious conflict of interest in the creation of a strike force codenamed Operation Toko. This task force was formed in order to streamline resources into investigating the disappearance of Janine. As part of the procedural documents, a stipulation was made that any information concerning corrupt and/or unethical conduct, including any conflict of interest, was to be reported in writing to none other than Officer Brad Hoseman. Officer Hoseman was also in charge of directly reviewing investigative notes from his teammates and streamlining them into formalized reports. In other words, all information went to and came out of Brad Hoseman. Another officer on the task force that was later investigated by the police commission was Officer Jacob, a subordinate to Officer Hoseman while on Strike Force Toko. In an interview with the Integrity Commission, he agreed that, in hindsight, it was, quote, "a little odd that an officer facing such criminal charges was initially placed in charge of the investigation of the disappearance of a similarly young woman," but said that at the time, his fellow brother in blue, Officer Hoseman, was accepted as part of the team, as such that Officer Jacob says he was solely focused on his role in the task force and doing his job. Some locals speculate, however, that part of his job may have been to clean up any mention of fellow Officer Hoseman in the police reports about Janine. Supporting the assertion that Officer Brad Hoseman's name was intentionally left out of the investigative notes is the fact that his name is not actually mentioned in official police reports nor statements until almost a month after Janine's disappearance. The only place his name can be seen is in the form of his signature on many official documents, certifying its completeness and truthfulness. Very early in the police investigation, Officer Hoseman was named by a number of people as having shown interest in Janine. However, this information was not always included in the initial statements prepared by police, something that would continue to occur throughout the investigation. Officer Brad Hoseman himself denied expressing any interest in dating Janine, but acknowledged finding her attractive. He said, quote, "I have no knowledge of whether or not Janine had any interest in me. I have never indicated to Janine a desire to go out with her, either directly or indirectly. I have never seen Janine at a licensed premise or purchased her a drink. I have not seen her, in particular, at the Oxford Hotel. I have never purchased anything from Ed Harry's menswear store either, in Bathurst or at any other location. Consequently, I have never returned any items. I have never sent Janine, or caused her to be sent, any flowers. I have never telephoned her either at her work, home address, or on her mobile telephone. At the time I first became aware of Janine, I had no knowledge of either her telephone number or address. I have walked past the Ed Harry store on many occasions in the course of carrying out my normal routine of shopping in the Bathurst city centre. Given Bathurst is a small city, this is not an unusual practice. I own a silver-colored Toyota Prado Lancaster that was newly purchased in November of 2001. Initially, when questioned by police about his whereabouts, the officer stated that he was at his mother's house in Newcastle from the 3rd of December to the 7th. However, additional suspicion arose when it was discovered that Brad may have in fact been in Bathurst on the night Janine went missing, as his credit card records show he purchased gas at South Wyong on the 6th, indicating he was traveling away from Newcastle and back to Bathurst. Additionally, Brad's cell phone records corroborated the theory that he had actually returned to Bathurst on the 6th of December. Janine went missing in the early morning hours of the 7th. Those still searching for answers say it is unclear why police failed to follow up such a clear path of inquiry. Brad's mother was never interviewed, and there was not any further effort made to check his self-reported alibi. Officer Jacobs said he didn't investigate Brad further because the call logs that were checked, showing Brad was in Bathurst on the 6th, could be unreliable. However, when Officer Jacob was questioned in court, he said he did in fact believe the call logs were reliable and was unable to explain why he didn't follow up on such a discrepancy in the timeline. Some question if his status as friend and colleague to Officer Hoseman affected his decision to not investigate his alibi further. Jacob could not give a reason why he suggested in his report that it would be unwise to rely upon the telephone records. The commission determined that it was misleading for Officer Jacob to assert in his report that the police could not take the usage of Brad Hoseman's credit card or call logs any further, when in fact no checks were undertaken to determine if the bank or the phone company could provide further information about the date and time of those incidents. Daniel Murphy, who worked at the Ed Harry menswear store with Janine, told police that a week or two before Janine went missing, she mentioned receiving 2 phone calls. One call occurred at 7 p.m., while the other took place at 8 a.m. the following morning. Daniel says that when Janine attempted to return the calls, she reached the reception of a motel who refused to provide details about the guests. The commission found no evidence linking Brad Hoseman to Janine's disappearance, nor did they formally establish if the two had ever interacted or even met. Shockingly to those reading the commission's findings, the police investigation cleared Brad of any involvement in Janine's case. After the formal completion of the Police Integrity Commission in late 2006, but before the results were released to the public in 2007, a specialized task force, given the moniker Strike Force Mountbatten, was assembled to assist the search for Janine. Prior to this, a search had already been conducted a few months after Janine's initial disappearance, covering various areas in and around Mount Panorama, spanning approximately 30 hectares of bushland. However, no significant discoveries were made. Subsequent search efforts yielded similar unusable outcomes, with one resulting in skeletal remains being found, however, they were not linked to Janine's case. Based on the available information, the police reached the presumption that, sadly, Janine had passed away. In 2009, a coronial inquest was held to investigate the circumstances surrounding Janine's disappearance. The inquest concluded that Janine was indeed deceased, yet the cause of her death could not be determined as her body had not been located. Evidence and statements regarding Brad Hoseman and Andrew Jones were presented at the inquest, but after hearing from multiple witnesses over a 10-day period, the coroner ultimately concluded that Janine was murdered by an unidentified person or persons, and they could not identify a suspect to charge specifically. A few years later, in 2013, detectives from the Homicide Squad's Unsolved Homicide Unit initiated Strike Force Toco 2 to reinvestigate Janine's disappearance. The reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible has been raised to $1 million. Janine's father has recently fallen gravely ill, and the family is desperate to give him any answers about his daughter.